Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Out of Rap. And today is a very special one. It is the 250th episode. Little did I think when I started this on my mum and dad's kitchen table with my daughter that 250 episodes later would still be going. And because it's a special one, I really wanted to uh, do this episode with ActionAid, who I've got to know really well for running the London Marathon last year and training again to do it this year. They're a wonderful, wonderful charity, and I'm really pleased to welcome Niki, Ignatiou, and Julia Rosell Jackson from ActionAid. Welcome to you both.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Martin.
So Nikki, starting with you, how long have you been with ActionAid? What is it that you do for them?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations for
Thank,
doing your second marathon, but also the 250th episode. That's very exciting. And
thank
big
you.
thanks again for having us. My name is Niki Ignatiou, as you mentioned. I've been with ActionAid for about 8 years now. And I currently head up our One Peace and Security team. So it's a team that focuses on research and policy on different thematic areas around humanitarian action and climate justice. But we can dive into that in a little bit more detail later.
Well, it sounds fascinating. So welcome, and Julia.
Yes, thanks, Martin, and congrats.
Thank you.
So I'm Julia. I am the Girls' Rights Specialist at ActionAid UK, and I've been at ActionAid for about 4 or 5 years, and been in a few different roles, but landed here, and I'm very happy to have done so.
Well, it's lovely to have you both here. Now, I've wanged on about ActionAid for a long time. But what is it that you? How would you sum up what you do and the aim of ActionAid?
I think ActionAid, it's an international organization. It works on the rights of women and girls living in poverty. We have quite a big presence. We're in 45 countries. I guess the overarching mandate or what we do is that we work towards achieving social justice. Some of those key issues that we focus on to do so are women and girls' rights, it's tax and economic justice, it's climate justice, and we also focus on emergencies and humanitarian response. I think what's really uh, great about ActionAid, if I can say so myself, is its unique way of working. We have something called our human rights-based approach, which means we put the focus on root causes, understanding why issues happen, but also focusing on people's rights. So they're the predominant agents of change. So whatever we are doing, we're always partnering with women's movements, with girls' rights, with youth and communities who are often the most affected. And that's a way we together shift power and challenge systems in order to build a just and feminist future.
So, is that really trying to manifest change or influence change so that you're not constantly dealing with the output of an unjust system?
Exactly spot on. I think when we work directly with communities and women's movements, they can lead on understanding what the root causes that need to be changed. And so they're able to build the resilience of their community. So if anything were to happen again, they'd be more prepared. There'd be better early warning systems and kind of shift, as you said, that narrative in order for it to be a system that works better for them.
And that is a sizable mission, then, right? That's that. I mean, I'm all for it. I love it, but that's not a small thing that you're trying to do. But the work with communities and movements, wherever they may be, must be really important to you.
Uh, Absolutely. They are the key pillar of everything that we do, and none of this work would be possible without women's movements, youth groups, and the communities that we work with. I think they underpin all of our work. So yeah, absolutely, I'd agree with that. Julie, I don't know if you'd say the same.
Yeah, for sure. I think, my favorite thing about the human rights-based approach and kind of really trying to tackle systems and kind of not just the consequences, kind of as you put it, Martin, is that when we're working on issues that affect people, it should be those people who are leading and dictating what we do and what we don't do about it. And so I think that that is really exciting. I think kind of really, we really try to make sure the power, the decision making, the direction is always with the different groups of people, communities, whoever that we're working with. And yeah, what they do is it's just, yeah, phenomenal.
Does that mean that you, in any of the projects that you're doing, that you hope to leave a long-lasting, not just impact, but skill set that you are there to support people develop, become, to your point, to become more powerful? I don't mean that in a weird way, but that you are skilling them and supporting them so that there's a longer lasting legacy in all of the areas that you're working in.
I don't think we necessarily would say that we skill people. I think maybe we kind of, especially because we work at ActionAid UK, for example, like we kind of maybe work to try and get funding to support communities or groups of people to then decide what it is that they want. It's not always just kind of gaining skills, and if it is, then I definitely feel like, for example, women's rights organisations that we work with are so well placed to
Mm,
maybe support with that, or federate or like ActionAid Federation members as well. But I think, yeah, it's definitely whatever we do, be it a project, be it research, be it like campaigning, working with movements, is for, we hope, like a sustainable, lasting impact. It's not for something that, starts and finishes and then everything's
mm.
the same afterwards.
Could I
And
add
you,
to that, if that's
yeah,
okay, Martin? Just
please.
as Julia was speaking, I think um, what I think we do at ActionAid UK is because the communities and the women movements that we work with, they already have the power
Mm,
and the rights and the knowledge. They don't need that from us. I think what we do is challenge the systems and power structures of oppression in order for that, that keep women and marginalized communities excluded. So we bring the evidence that Julia mentioned to push for systematic change. So we make sure that policies and funding and decisions reflect their realities and ensure that they are at the table when conversations are happening, that they're able to take decisions, and that the structures that don't work around for them kind of get unpacked. So I think it's just to shift your question around, it's
mm.
not so much us uh, giving knowledge. We don't have the knowledge. They have more knowledge than we do. It's changing the world around us that doesn't allow for that for it to be seen and shift the power um, that hasn't been given to them, unfortunately.
I don't love that last bit, but I love the work that you do, and you both mentioned in your introductions the roles that you do. But from what you do, could you just bring that to life a little bit? And maybe there's something that sticks with you that is a great example of a project or an initiative, a piece of work that you are working on now that can just bring those roles to life.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I said, so I am the Girls' Rights Specialist at ActionAid UK. This means that I get to work on so many interesting, cool, different things to do with girls' rights. And particularly over the past few years, I've been focusing on adolescent girls. So I think kind of all across the world, we speak about women and girls. We do it too. But adolescent girls kind of are at a interesting junction between the two, shall we say. We've all been teenagers. We know we don't like to be told that our reality is what children are doing. But also it's unfair if we're kind of like forcing maturity on adolescent girls, right? And that's really inappropriate and not right. And so ActionAid UK kind of, well, ActionAid, sorry, sought to see if we could do something about that slightly. So I guess a bit of what we were saying before about there's kind of a system that kind of invisibilizes adolescent girls for lack of a better way of putting it. So we thought with, other ActionAid Federation members, what can we do about this? And so we started off, and this is like maybe my favorite example to bring my work to life, with something called girl-led research, which then became girl-led research in action. And we, and I say we, I mean the whole of ActionAid,
Mm.
um, wanted to see if it could work, and it did. If adolescent girls could be researchers, researchers, we usually think academia, it's usually quite like European focused or whatever. And we were like, no, that doesn't have to be the case. As we were saying, the people we work with are the experts of their own lives, and this also applies to adolescent girls. So, our ActionAid Federation members worked with different women's rights organisations, different groups of girls, and kind of developed a sort of process to work with girls to become researchers. And so these adolescent girls did everything, like they developed research questions, they analysed the data, they came up with recommendations. And then they came up with research. And after that, we were like, okay, now what? And so then we were like, okay, let's try and support, let's try and see if we can support these girls to enact action about what they found. And oh my, did they? So in the first, we've done it in 5 different countries so far. We've done it in Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. And all of the issues that the girls face are different, right? They're country
Mm.
dependent. They're also, more location dependent. Like in Nigeria, we did it in like a more rural place and in a more urban place. And their experiences and their findings of their own research were different. But like the one thing they have in common is kind of their capacity to lead and to actually generate change. And I'm happy to kind of go into different examples of what they've done to do with that, if that's interesting. But
Oh, yes, very
yeah.
much so.
Okay, so for example, in Bangladesh, one of the main themes that came out of the adolescent girls' research was kind of how menstrual access to menstrual products and kind of how menstruation was seen in their communities, in their lives, how much that disadvantaged them. Uh, and similar to what we were saying, like getting to the root cause. So, for example, there's no free access to menstrual products. So the girls kind of went and did advocacy to their kind of regional power structures and managed to get free period products in schools. They also did loads of like awareness raising campaigns within their kind of communities, and now they report there's an absolute massive shift in how they're able to talk about it, who talks about it, and it's just kind of been a total 180 on what their experiences were before, and also all of the consequences of that, right? Like better access, like they can go to school more, they can kind of not have to stay at home when they're on their period as much, except like different things like that. In Nigeria, the girls have done incredible work doing like advocacy with both regional and national government on issues to do with child marriage, to do with education, and also to even do with kind of like women's representation in parliament. And I just love that adolescent girls are being consulted on the parliament's makeup. Like, I think that's great. Um, and they've had some different wins there. In Ethiopia, the girls kind of took it upon themselves to take what they'd gained and kind of go spread it. So they've worked with girls on other projects and kind of just outside of anything to do with ActionAid to kind of become more powerful by like doing advocacy and taking action together. For example, the girls from that were part of this project where I worked with girls working on FGM, and that has been a really meaningful win for them as well. In Sierra Leone, they have developed like videos and radio campaigns. They have like a regular radio slot which the girls get to go on, and you know raise awareness about the issues that affect them the most. They've also really focused on speaking about from their research, they felt that people were unaware of like different laws that could protect them. And so they've kind of used that radio slot to raise awareness about that. So yeah, just so many different ways, all unique to kind of what they wanted to achieve, what their experiences were, what they felt comfortable doing, and it's still going. So yeah, to me that really represents the work that we try to do, and it's really exciting.
That's so cool. Just hearing you talk about all the different areas that they've things that are meaningful to them, but then they've gone out researched it, so they gain confidence from understanding things in greater detail. But just the thought of approaching both regional and national governments, that to me was the thing, because I was thinking when you were talking then, I would be really intimidated trying to do that, um, let alone adolescent girls in a situation that the system doesn't support them.
Yeah.
So not only are they kind of being positively disruptive there, but just the thought of trying to influence regional, national governments and carrying on the work afterwards is so uplifting.
Yeah, definitely. I think from what the girls say, when they do the research, they really work with their supporting structures, members of their community, etc. And I think kind of having people been involved, also having their voices heard, I think maybe does kind of build yeah, a bit of kudos, I don't know, for the girls to be more supported going forward. But I also think, honestly, it's a testament to the women's rights organizations that the girls work with. In Nigeria, for example, we've worked with two, one called the Teenage Network, one called the Baba Zimi Foundation, and I think they are the most experts you could be in kind of supporting adolescent girls to lead, and I think it shows basically. Um,
And what great things they might go on to do for the rest of their lives as a result of your work and this kind of experience and confidence that they've gained, and people actually appreciating their competencies and the power that they can, because I guess this for all of us, but especially the girls that you work with, you can sometimes feel powerless, that there aren't ways that you can make positive change, but through this they have real life evidence and experience of doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that, or hope maybe, that the girls who've been involved in this will take it, continue to take it forward and kind of lead in the future. And it's definitely a testament to their hard work, to also their bravery, their dedication as well. Like I don't know if I when I was a teenager if I would have stuck to something that's kind of intensive like this, and also the federation members. Um, that we work with. And ActionAid has a really strong focus on youth movements. Niki mentioned it before, and we are really trying to make those links. The girls, the adolescent girls themselves have also raised, how sometimes they get lost in youth because youth has its own gender dynamics as well. But we really do kind of yeah, there's so many youth movements going on around the world, and the hope is that they can continue to kind of lead going forward and then yeah do whatever they really want, honestly, but
That's amazing. And Nikki, you mentioned at the outset your role. I got the sense it kind of it's in areas of conflict.
Mhm.
So that must be really challenging.
It, the world we live in at the
Mm.
moment,
Yeah.
it's going through a crazy phase. But yes, my team focuses on policy research and advocacy in a range of thematic areas. So there's women's rights that we spoke about and women's protection, but humanitarian response is a really big one, climate justice and one peace and security, so peace building. And you're right that it kind of fits this broader picture that the crises that we're seeing today, whether they're humanitarian crises such as earthquakes or conflicts, whether they're climate induced, so like floods and droughts, they're not only increasing in number, but they're also lasting longer. And it's becoming this really difficult and dangerous pattern. And I guess from ActionAid's side, we also know that unfortunately in these contexts, women and girls are the most affected.
Mm.
That's beyond the immediate dangers. There's increased risks of violence or breakdown of systems. We are also seeing school systems that get shut down. There's emergency distributions that don't always provide the specific needs that women and girls need, such as menstrual supplies and safe toilets, for example.
Mm.
But as we mentioned earlier, Martin, the women's movements are also the first ones there, the first responders in their context. That's because they know the risks. They're part of the terrain. They know what their community needs. They know who's most affected. So then when these systems do collapse, they're actually the ones that organize, then they mobilize the response. And I guess that's where my role and the team's role is. I've had the privilege of working with some incredible women's movements who are at the forefront of humanitarian and peace building or climate response. Um, I can also go in with a few examples, but I think, that what's is amazing is their resilience in their work. I guess at the beginning of the escalation of the Ukrainian conflict back in 2022, I was at the border between Ukraine and Poland. We were assessing some of the gendered impacts of the crises and some of the needs that were happening. And I saw women's rights organizations supporting those crossing the border, providing shelter, giving warm food. And this was just immediate first
Mm.
few days. In Palestine, similarly, we work with women's movements who've set up safe spaces for women, who've organized psychosocial support for traumatized children and their families. We see it in DRC and Ethiopia. They've led humanitarian aid distributions. They provide early warning systems. And I think one of the most urgent areas of my work is making sure that their voices, knowledge, and priorities are actually centered. So, as Julia flagged, that's co-producing research. It's ensuring international policies on humanitarian response, and even climate financing don't continue to sideline women's actors who very much are the ones who hold the solutions. At UK level, we also advocate for change the UK humanitarian development policies for them to fund women's rights organizations, for them to prioritize their rights and their leadership. So most recently, we wrote a research report on how women rights organizations are finding alternative solutions to peace. And this report was in Colombia, in Ethiopia, Uganda, and Myanmar. And it really put it to perspective because sometimes we talk about peace as if it is a treaty. It's a summit that you talk about at the UN system. But for so many people women that I worked with, peace was about being able to walk home safely.
Mm.
Peace was about giving birth in a functional hospital. It was about access to land and justice for their children to be able to access school without fear, right? So a lot of my work is challenging some of these narratives of like, whose peace matter? Why does it matter? And just, yeah, very closely working with these women's rights and women-led movements in humanitarian emergencies to respond to the needs.
So this is for those examples that you gave. It's really powerful that it's actually people's lived experience on the ground,
Mhm.
rather than, as you say, these like kind of grandiose geopolitical summits, meetings, terms. What does it actually mean for people, both in the middle of conflict or climate disasters, but then afterwards in their day-to-day life? What for things that we will probably take for granted here in the UK, especially me as a man. Um, I don't ever worry about walking home safely or
Mm.
access to a hospital and things like that. So, I mean, the that kind of work. Have you seen in your time with ActionAid? Uh, has it always been the same level of work that you've had to do in terms of supporting disasters, conflict, or has that increased?
The question, I think it has always been the same in
Mm.
the sense that there's a lot of silent and hidden emergencies that the media doesn't pick up.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of emergencies that we work with where um, whether that's droughts in East Africa, which don't get as much traction in the media, that is prolonged and ongoing, whether that's different conflicts, that has always been occurring. So I think the work has always been there. And unfortunately, it is unfair that only some get seen and some get supported by. So yes, there's definitely been quite an increase of work around it, and I think it's really present that we work so much with the movements that we do, because as you said, they're kind of the ones who will be able to bring that long-term continuity. So it's not us who can see it or will watch
Mm.
something on TV, right? They're the ones who know exactly what the issues are. And uh, it's the same when it comes to things like reconstruction. So we might be there for the immediate humanitarian assistance bit, and there'll be an influx of agencies or donors or support that comes in. And I think one of the main reasons why the why ActionAid works with movements directly in these contexts is that we therefore don't leave. Those movements
Mm.
will always be there. That's their ongoing life, and they will support that long-term longevity. But yes, unfortunately, these conflicts have been here for a very, very long time. Crises keep happening. I think what we're seeing, the shift, is that they're just multiplying constantly and they're becoming more protracted. So it's not so much that there's new emergencies, there might be, I should look that up, but I think it's just more so that they're becoming longer, more protracted, um, and more obvious to us in our
Mm.
everyday lives as well.
I mean, for both of you, the work that you do is amazing. The work that ActionAid do, I think, is amazing, and I love this kind of connection and very much hand in hand approach with other agencies on the ground, wherever that may be. Um, are you both sort of driven by passion? Does it have an impact on you, the work? Because it's both, I can imagine, and I might be wrong, but is it equally uplifting but also draining as well? How does it impact you both kind of personally?
I think I'm maybe driven by justice, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I think for me, you know, when our jobs get to be trying to advocate to people in power, especially in the UK government, for example, to be like, look at all of these women's rights organizations that you may be overlooking. Look at all the work that they're doing. This needs to be recognized. This needs to be funded. Look at how these adolescent girls are researching and taking action. Like, support that. This is important. Um, and so for me, on one side, I think it's very much driven by kind of, yeah, a drive for justice, probably quite deep. Um, but I think the day-to-day impact for me is honestly a bit like pinch me. I think getting to work with, uh,
Mm.
yeah, these different groups of people, these women's rights organizations that are are so like fantastic, impressive, making real change in the world. I think that that's a very, um, I feel very privileged that that's my job. So yeah, I think for me, it's kind of those two things is how it maybe affects me personally, the most.
I love that. Nikki?
Yeah, very, very similar. I think I loved Julia, you said justice. I think
Yeah.
you're so right on that. I don't think I would frame it any differently. I think it's it's recognizing that, you know, we have uh, power to shift a narrative and break down some of the challenging structures that are around us. So I think for me, I'm just driven by the movements that we work with, that even they may have been excluded, under attack, but they keep showing up for their communities. Um, and I think when you have that resilience in front of you, you're like, well, this is what it's all about.
Mm.
And I think that's what keeps me going, and it's energizing, it's rewarding, but most of all, it's just a privilege to be working alongside them.
Well, it's a privilege to have you both on, and I'm sure people listening will think the same. How can people best kind of support, get involved? How can people show up and just recognize the great work you do and support it?
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can get involved with ActionAid. You can do kind of similar to what you, Martin, did, but also Nikki and I did, which is do a run and fundraise for ActionAid. And there's lots of different ones you can get involved with. But we have a website which is www.actionaid.org.uk/get involved. And on that website, there's loads of ways where you can see where you can take action, support ActionAid, and kind of, yeah, be involved with us in different ways.
I will share that link as well in all of the output of this. And are you tempted to run the marathon, or do you?
I always think that with running the marathon, you kind of leave it up to fate. And put your name in the ballot, and then if you get picked,
Okay, yeah.
you're kind of like, okay, great, guess I'm doing this now. But otherwise, it's fate saying it's okay.
Well, I think we should preface it with neither Julia or I were necessarily on planning on running the half marathon for ActionAid, but I think because we set up a group of us to do it together, that kind of motivated us. And
Yeah.
so we were like, let's do this. Some of us hadn't even run 5K, some of us hadn't run 10K. That was me, for instance. Julia had already done a half marathon and a marathon, but we were all at different levels. So I think it was just us running together. So when you asked Martin, I was like, well, maybe if we get a group together and
There
all
you
try
go.
for it.
Well, and I actually think the group was fun for like the two hardest bits, which is training. So we
Mm.
would run together and things like that, give each other loads of kudos on Strava. But then also the fundraising, we did that all together as well. We like organized pub quizzes, and when you've a big group of you manage to can hopefully manage to invite quite a few people and different things as well. So I think doing it in a group was definitely easier and so much fun. So maybe.
I don't know about you though, but when so I'll often have friends who have seen that I'm training, and they'll say, "Oh, can I run with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course. Just as long as you know." I don't answer back. I can't speak back. This is going to be a very one-sided conversation because I'm just focused on my breathing.
Yeah, yeah,
And as long as they're following what my plan is, and the speed that I have to follow in
Yeah.
order to be able to run this race. Absolutely.
Well, I got asked last week by a friend of mine that I play football with, and like you say, well, on Strava, I could see on Strava how fast he is, and I thought I don't know if I'll get to the end of my road keeping up with him. And he said, "Oh, are you doing the marathon again?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I'll come and do you want to come for a run with me?" And it's more about me feeling concerned for him because I said, "You'll hate it. You will think it's like a walk." I'm so slow, but there's power to slow runners, is what I'd say.
yeah. That's what I was gonna say. I justified it with like my husband was also running it, and he's very fast, and I kind of made myself feel okay about making him run with me because slow running is really good for your like breathing and technique and all of these important things as well. So I think go for it, Martin.
You
Yeah.
hit him with the get the zone 2 run in.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I always say it's not slow to me. This is the max. This is like the maximum I've got.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on. I couldn't talk highly enough. Once I started last year doing the fundraising, just kind of looking at everything that you do and trying to read more and find out more. But you've both brought it to life for me and for everyone listening. So thank you, Nikki and Julia, for coming on and more power to you.
Oh,
So
thank
much, Martin, for having us. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today.
Yeah, thank you. And to 250 more episodes.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Take care.